exercise 10 now. So we're going to be demonstrating and talking about using or making measured perfect cubes with a 45-degree measuring point in our full setup of our fundamental 4. So if you don't know what the fundamental 4 is, go back to the How We See lecture, the really long one, the 3-hour long-winded one that I did a while ago, and make sure you familiarize yourself with that. But I'm going to be rehashing it here because it's important, and we're going to be making perfect measured 45-degree, 90-degree cubes in perspective, and we'll talk about distortion and lack of distortion, or more normative view inside the cone. Okay, so I've got my drawing paper here. I'm going to get my trusty T-square out. To make this work, slide it across my drawing board here, and we're going to get started here. So the first thing we want to establish now is our fundamental 4. So we need our center of vision and our eye line. So I like to establish the eye line first, because in this drawing, this diagram or exercise number 10, the horizon line will be the same as our eye line or eye level as well. So let's make sure my T-square is nice and perpendicular, parallel to our camera. That would not be good. That would be wrong. Okay, there we go. All right, so let me go ahead and draw the horizon line out. We'll put it a little higher, about right here, on my piece of paper. So try to follow along and draw with me as best you can. Sometimes I would suggest drawing or watching the video first and then drawing second, but you can do both, really. Okay, so got the horizon line here. We'll label that HL, which is also our eye level, right in through here. And so I'm going to come across here and go ahead and put our center of vision in here, halfway through, about between the camera here and here. I'm going to put our center of vision right here, because our center of vision is, again, right smack through the center of our head at eye level, so right in between our eyes, and that's important to know that. So this is our eye line, eye level. This is, of course, our picture plane that we're drawing as well. So we'll get our center of vision located in here, up and through and downward, coming through, and I'll bring it further down all the way through to our end of our camera, in through there. Okay, so we have that. All right, so center of vision here. I'll label that CV for center of vision. And through there, we've got our eye level, which this is our first fundamental. This is our second fundamental, 4, right? Now we need our station point. So this is our picture plane. I'm going to establish the station point about right here where my pencil is. So I'm going to put a dot there. And we're going to label that number 3 for SP, or station point. And then I'm going to draw the little diagram of the little person, the woman or man. And so that's our secondary station point 2. I don't really have a distance set out. That it's a little buttock here, little feet coming out, so we're looking straight down. So remember, this is flapped up and over there, and it gives us the visual distance that we're looking out onto the scenario that we're drawing with our station point. So this is us as well. I say too, but it's us also, in addition to it's our two-dimensional view of ourselves, so our station point. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then we need our final fundamental 4, which is our cone of vision, which is very important. So you're going to need your 90-degree 90-degree triangle. So let me show you what that is. So this is 90 degrees, this is 60, and this is 30 here. So how do we use that to set up our cone? Well, I'll show you. From your station point, right here, we're going to line this up to our center of vision along our station point, and along align this angle up to our station point. And then we're going to draw out to the horizon line, and we're going to stop right where it bisects here. Now this can keep going, but we're going to stop right there because that's where our cone of vision 30 and 30 is to make 60. So this measurement here is now 30 degrees. That was a 30-degree angle. And so now we're going to flip it on the other side to do the same thing to get our 60 degrees. So we can get our rate of being inside our cone, so we get less, if any, distortion. Remember, anytime we get outside of the cone, we get more distortion. And actually the cone is probably less than 60. It was established a long time ago, way before I was alive. All of us were alive. And established at roughly about 60 degrees. I don't know. I was taught that, and I don't know. I never got the history on that either. So if you know, and if you research it, let me know. Send me an email. That would be really a cool thing if you want to. And so now this is also 30 degrees here, and that gives us a total across everything of 60 degrees. So that's our 60-degree cone, and that's our fourth fundamental, which is our cone of vision. Now, let's establish our cone of vision with our compass so we can actually see it. Okay? Now remember, our four fundamentals are innate. We have them innately, inherently, every animal. Any animal I think that has probably two eyes, or even if it has one eye, maybe the mythological cyclops even, maybe that's even better, so we don't have a difference in vision. But we all have this, and we all carry it around, and it all resets as soon as we move our head. Remember, we're in 1 point or possibly 2 point. All right, so how to establish and get your cone of vision? We're going to take our compass, and we're going to roll it out. You can see me doing it here, and I'm just going to establish the steel point at our center point of our center of vision, where the center of vision meets our eye line on the horizon line, and scroll it out till I get to the end point here of our cone of vision, and then bring it just all the way across and all the way through. And this makes our cone of vision. And of course, you get a little extra out here. In here, that's outside, slightly outside our cone of vision, outside this 30-degree, 60-degree area. So it's a little outside, so you'd get more distortion there. So now we have our four fundamentals set up in our cone of vision. And now we're just about ready to have some fun and cook a little bit. Now, the last thing I want to establish, since this is exercise number 10, and it's all about 45-degree measured cubes, we need a measuring point from ourselves, us, out here, but also symbolically from our station point that is 45 degrees outward from our station point, to give us a sense of where we can shoot our measuring point for our cubes, our perfect cubes, by the way. All sides are created equal, all sides are equal. And so we need to do that now. So what we want to do here is establish, since we have 45, 45, 90, we'll take our 45 degrees here, and I'm going to establish it, and you can establish it on any side if you want. It's up to you, whatever's convenient. I'm just going to do it here on the right side. So I'm going to take my red pencil, and I'm going to line up my triangle along our center of vision and bring it down to our station point right there. Make sure it's nice and aligned, and then from that station point I'm going to draw a line outward. That's 45 degrees, and where it touches the horizon line, I'm going to put a dot there, right there, and that is our measuring point, MP, at 45 degrees. Pretty cool, pretty good stuff. So what, right? Who cares? Well, I'm going to show you why now, why we're here. So let's do some now 1 point perfect cubes in perspective, and let's see how that works out for us. I think you'll find it pretty cool and a pretty nice challenge. All right, here we go. So let's put our first box out here. And so we're going to establish, and we're going to stay within the cone for now. Remember, there's less distortion, if any, through here. We're going to put our first box out here, and let's put it a little bit pushed over from our center point of our center of vision, about right here. So I'm going to establish the bottom front line of that box about right here. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to the vanishing point for our depth. Here's our VP now. So our VP always is in the center, or center point, right through there. So now I'm going to go back to the vanishing point here to create our depth right here and right here. All right, so we have our depth there. Now I'm going to create, let me get that clear so you can see that. Now I'm going to create the height of our box here, and I need 45 degrees to do that. So I take my 45-degree angle and I'll line it up across here like so at 45 degrees. Let me do that in red so you can see that. And through here so we can get a nice perfect box in here. Make sure that's lined up and through there. So that's 45 degrees coming up from this corner, or you could do it the opposite corner. So that gives me the same measurement is here. So now I bring up this line here to here. There we go. And so now we have our same measurement here. And I'll bring this over to here. Bring our horizontal over as well as our vertical. Bringing it up through here to here. Bingo. There we go. All right. So now we have our front face. So now let's talk about depth. How do we get that same idea of what I just did of 45 degrees? This is why we have the measuring point. How do I get this same idea of perfect measurement of this distance back in space? How do we do that? By the measuring point here. So from this corner, we go back to our 45-degree measuring point right here. Draw a line through all the way to the vanishing point for now. Where it bisects right there. There's our depth at 45 degrees, which gives us an equal spaced cube. So then I can come back and I can outline this a little stronger here so we can see it. You can see it through here. Then I need to take these 2 points of our box back to our cube, back to the vanishing point for depth here, since we're making a transparent cube there and here. Take a look at that. Now we're on our way. So we have our depth set in. Now we can bring this measurement across and over, make it a little bit lighter since we're drawing transparently. And now we can bring up our vertical here to here. Stop where it meets the diminishment line, convergence line right there. Get my head out of the way so you can see it. And now we can bring our true horizontal over here to there. There we go. And then bring that down. And see how they line up nice and clean. Draw a little bit lighter. So keep yours pretty light, especially your inside lines. We're drawing this box as if it's glass. And so there you go. There's your first perfect 45-degree measured cube where all sides are equal. Remember, it's equal. So we did 2 things that we needed. Remember, we had that crossing X. We did that with just 1 to find our length. So we just took this length at 45 degrees and brought it up, since that will give us a perfect cube. And then we did the same thing in our depth, but we needed a 45-degree angle from ourselves, our station point down below, to do it. Once you know that, you're liberated and you can really start to have a lot of fun. So any cube that we do now, at one point, you know how to do it already. So now one thing I want to also say about our vision and what we're looking at is we're looking into the space. We don't know the distance between ourselves and the picture plane, and that's okay because I haven't given scaling. But we know that this box is in the ground plane, right? Here's our sky plane. So we're in the ground plane. We're looking slightly down on it. Even though our eyes are locked in, our head is not tilted. Remember that. Our head is not tilted. Our eyes are locked into the eye line and the horizon line, but our eyes are slightly down, looking down on, because the box is lowered. It's touching the ground here. So we see the top in perspective. We see the front plane, right? Which there's no depth to that. It's flat. It's a flat box, right? But we see the right plane a little bit. Why is that? Because the box is moved over to the left of our center of vision, right through our head. This goes right through the middle of our head. Our eyes are on either side. They go right through our head. This goes right through our eye line. This box is pushed over, and it's lower, right, lower on the ground than our eye line. Let's do another box. Let's do one over here. Do another 45-degree measured box. Let's put it a little bit in front of this one. And the reason why we know that is if, remember, the rules of perspective, our first lecture, boxes, forms, objects, lines that are receding or further away will be higher up the picture plane until they disappear to a vanishing point. So anything lower than this box here will be a little closer to us. Okay? All right, so let's take another one and let's put it over here. We'll keep it just slightly in the cone, and we'll make it about right here. Okay, so there's our box. So now we need a 45-degree angle to get that true measurement. Now you could do that with the compass if you wanted to. Let's do it with the compass just for something different. Remember, it's a perfect measured cube, so you can do a 45-degree line, but if you don't have a 45-degree triangle, what would you do? Two things. You could do it by this compass, right? Remember that. So I'll set in my length here and here. You could measure it with your ruler. That's another thing. Or you could use, remember the sheets of paper that we've used? You could do that as well. Okay, there we go. So we took that line. We'll bring a vertical up. Okay, I'd like to show you a couple of different approaches to do that. And you could use a sheet of notebook paper to measure that too. So let's take that line right there. And there we go. We have the same measurement across. All right. So there we go. So now let's bring horizontal across here. Okay. And let's bring a little bit longer. Try to get it fairly exact so I don't have to erase too much. And let's bring our vertical up here. There we go, right there. Remember, keep your drawings ultra light. I'm drawing darker because I need it to show up in the camera. If I was doing this for myself, it would be ultra light. Especially if you're working on a finished piece and you need some perspective understanding. You may have a piece worked out that's more expressive, but then you need a little bit of perspective understanding, and you just need a few little marks or ticks. Draw really lightly, or draw, like if you're working in charcoal, it may be too soft. Do it in a colored pencil, white, or maybe you may actually, if it's additive subtractive, you may make marks in eraser, so you can just take them right out. There are many creative ways, and if you're creative enough, you'll come up with those solutions. Okay, so let's create depth now back to our 1-point vanishing point from our 4 corners of our box, here and here, and we're doing all 4 because we're working inside out, here and here. Okay, there we go. All right, now we need depth. We need to create depth in our composition. And so to do that, we need that 45-degree measuring point to help us out. All right. Now we can go back to here, from here to here to get that. It's going to probably end up right through there. What if we did one over here too? We could have a 45 degree from the station point over here to help us out. Either way is fine. You could do it left or right. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. So from this corner of our box, we draw a line, construction line, back to the 45 degree measuring point. I'm going to shorthand it right there. So where it touches our convergence or our diminishment line, that's the true length of a 45 degree cube in perspective right there. So that's where we know to draw the end of our box right there, all the way across to there. There's the end of our box. Now it just becomes a simple idea of bringing up the verticals and bringing over the horizontal. And if you do it right, they all fit together. Here, okay, we see that. Bingo. And then we'll bring it over our horizontal to there, right up the ruler. I'll try to keep my noggin, my head out of the way as best I can. Sometimes I can't. So just bear with me there, to there. Forget about this red line. It works for this box. Just because they almost meet, don't worry about that. That doesn't mean anything. And so now I'll bring up our two lines here and see how they meet nicely. Right there. And now we have another 45 degree measured box in perspective, and it's inside, remember, our cone of vision. So I'm going to label that cone of vision out here. That's number 4 of our fundamental 4s, right? We'll always have this set up, but we won't necessarily always draw it because it's always with us. There are times when we need it. There are times when we can kind of keep it relaxed, and that's so very important. So I'm going to darken this in a little bit and kind of go a little faster so you can see it. And I might shade a little bit of these before we leave this lesson, this exercise. Lesson sounds so kind of harsh, you know, rigid schooling. Okay, so we have two perfect 45 degree cubes, right? They're both in the ground plane. This one is a little bit in front of that one. Why? Because it's further down the picture plane. Here's where it's touching on the ground, and it's over and through there. Let's do a couple of more now in the sky plane so you can see that. And let's do one also in outside the cone of vision at perfect 45 degrees to see how distorted it's going to get. It'll blow your mind a little bit. It's kind of cool that way. So let's do some more up here in the sky plane. So I'll do one that is kind of in our center of vision, and so we won't see the left side, we won't see the right side. This is important too when you're drawing. So I'll put out a line here, and that's going to be my my box. Just an arbitrary line. Maybe I might make it a little bit bigger just for the sake of things. It'll be about that distance. Pretty long line. Okay, so now we need 45 degrees. How do you want to do it? Do you have a ruler? Do you have a compass? I'll do this one at 45 here, or I could do it the opposite way. I'll just show you the opposite way. There's many different ways you can do it. So this is a 45 degree angle. It's a 90, 45, 45 triangle. So there's 45 set in. Bingo, there's my line up. And so that gives me the measurement that I need, visually speaking, to where to stop my line. So I line up the end of my line to this one here, to the red line. That's 45, right? Stop, and then I'll bring these up. It goes a little longer. Right there. Then I'll bring this over here. Okay, to there. And if you want to double check it, all you have to do is say, what about that centering X idea? Does that work out? Well, there it is, right there to there. Because each one's 45 degrees, right? And there's your center right there. So remember how I said we're going to be a little off center? It's exactly what I wanted. So just to double check, it proves what we've got going. Okay, so now let's create some depth by projecting back to the vanishing point, right? Here. And here. And here. And there we go. Okay, I think that works pretty well for us. Now we need to use our measuring point, 45 degrees, to find our depth. So from right here, this corner, back to the measuring point at 45 degrees. There we are. We'll come over right there where it touches, or it bisects, if you will. That's the end of our box. Very foreshortened, isn't it? Because it's getting closer to our eye level, our eye line. It will disappear. The bottom will disappear completely once it gets to that line. So I'll bring a nice horizontal over, and there's the bottom of our box in perspective. Let me darken that in so you'll see it a little bit better. There and there. And now we're on our way. We're cooking. Now let's do the inside of it. We don't see the left and we don't see the right side. Why? Because it's in our center of vision enough. So we've got to know that. That's important to know. So let's bring up our verticals. Okay. From here up. Let's just do the opposite one too. Here up to our diminishment line. Okay, and we'll bring those over. It's a little bit off there, but okay. Pencil's a little bit thicker. Bring that over. Make sure we get that in nice and tight. There we go. Gonna make sure you hit your vanishing point clean. That's why I like to keep them a little bit smaller. Once you get a little bit big, here's a good point. Once you get a little bit bigger, and I have to make it bigger so you can see it, but I actually like to just put a very, very tiny dot, because if you start even getting off a little bit, like a 1/16 of an inch, I'll have that little problem there. You're probably not inaccurate if you're 1/16 off. If you're half an inch off, then you've got your perspective probably wrong. So just be careful. Sometimes you'll see me like it'll be off a 1/16, a little small. That's because I've got a big dot, and one line I might put to the left of the dot, one line I put to the right. When I really need, I'm being lazy, I should go right to the center. So just be careful of that. I think that's important. So the more accurate you can be. When I was at art school, we couldn't have any line overhanging at all. It was a certain kind of craftsmanship torture, but it teaches you how to be really accurate. But for our purposes, well, I might be here all day with a lesson. We don't want that. So remember, that went back to 45 degrees. 45 degrees. All these red lines, 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Why? It goes back to our measuring point, which came out of our stationary point. So now we have another 1-point cube that is in the sky plane now, and we're looking underneath it, and we don't see the left or right because it's relatively in our center of vision. See how these are pulled over? That's so very important to understand. So now let me put another one over here, and I'm going to go a little bit faster since you probably getting this down a little bit quicker now, hopefully. So I'll sharpen up my pencil here a little further. Okay. And let's draw again. Let's make this one a little smaller and a little higher. So I'll put this one about right here, like so. We need 45 degrees, right? How do you want to do that? Let me do that with a piece of paper. So if you don't have a compass and you don't have a 45-degree ruler, how would you get your 45 here? You might be able to figure that out. So I'm going to take this distance here and here and just recreate it up here. There's my dot right there. So now I know where to go with my length of my horizontal. There's a couple of ways to do that. Right through there and there. So I'm still kind of right in the cone of vision, but barely. So I won't get too much distortion. I might get a little bit. You're probably asking me, what is distortion? What does he mean by that? Well, I'm going to demonstrate that for you in a moment with our next box. When we get outside of our cone so far, angles and planes tend to start to widen and start to lengthen. Sometimes they can curve, and it's not how we see in our limited cone of our natural vision, which is mostly here. Okay, and so we can't see the distortion too often peripherally. If we could somehow do that theoretically, that would be amazing. We could see all kinds of weird distortions and we could draw them. But we know they're there because but what our vision does, we know it's there because we can see it on this paper, which helps us describe the real world. We just, again, as soon as we change our vision from left, right, up, down, wherever, our fundamental fork resets and we can't see it. I hope that's clear. That's a cool little thing that happens in vision. So let's go back to the VP with our depth. That's another thing, if you're off a little bit, if you break your pencil, try to keep it as sharp as you can. Let's go back to our depth. Our VP here, 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 and also from this corner back to our vanishing point there. Okay, so now we need to go 45 degrees, right? So to our measuring point. So let's pick this corner here. We can do that. Or maybe, you know what, let me show you something else. Let me just show you that we can do another, if you wanted a measuring point over here, you could do that. No big deal. Watch this. So this is a 45-degree angle here. So I'll line it up to the station point. I'll put my measuring point now from the station point, from our center of our head out to the horizon line or eye level, right through there where it touches, right? That's a measuring point as well. That's also at 45 degrees. Later on, this will mean something when we have two of these. It'll mean 2-point perspective. Kind of get ahead of myself, but I wanted to show you this. Now from this corner, instead of the left corner, from the right corner, we can go back to this measuring point, and that's going to give us 45 degrees in perspective. Right there to there. So we'll draw over where it meets right there. That's a nice 45-degree angle in depth, in perspective. Okay, now we'll draw back to our depth line at the bottom of our box right there. And now we have a perfect plane that's the same as this one, but now the bottom in depth. And now all we have to do is just transfer up and around. Okay, let's go up to here. Okay, and then let's go around. Get my head out of the way as best I can. There, over, and let's go down. There we go. Right in, whoops. Right in through there. All right, so now we have another perfect 45-degree box in perspective. Okay, so let's do a couple of more. I want to do one out here, and it's going to be a perfectly drawn 45-degree or measured cone, or excuse me, box, but it's going to be outside the cone mostly. And you're going to see what happens when things start to get farther outside the cone. It won't look equal anymore. It'll look very different from these. So let's do that now. So now we're going to step out of our cone. Remember, our cone is right here, 60 degrees, right? Here and here, 30 and 30. This is 30 and this is 30. A total of 60 degrees around this cone. Let's put a box out here. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to come out here now, about right there. Let's put one out here. So we're going to put its length there. And I'm going to use my 45-degree triangle, okay, for that angle here. Make sure I get it. It's a pretty blunt end, so sometimes that's another thing. Sometimes these triangles get kind of blunted on the end, so you just have to be kind of careful. There's my 45 degrees coming up right there. And I kind of overdraw a little bit so I know I can hit it right in through here easily. That's going to work for me. Right in through there to there. There we go. Okay. Now let's bring up this vertical here and over. And then we bring up this horizontal right where this touches. That's where we bring the horizontal over to there. Bingo. And if you're not sure that's equal length, you can measure it. I guarantee it is, to as accurate as you can draw it. But if not, you can find, hey, there's our center of vision, our centering X idea, right? Right through there, there's our true center. Just in case you Didn't trust it? Trust yourself. You can prove it that way. All right, so let's go back to now the vanishing point, and let's create depth by drawing convergence lines. I call them convergence lines. You can call them diminishment lines. You can call them going back to the vanishing point lines. You'll hear me say something like that. Many different ways to say it. So from this corner, I'll go back, and I'm not going to go draw all the way back and overlap. I'm going to shorthand these a little bit to here, to there, to there, and then from this point back to the vanishing point. There we go, to there. And let's see what happens. See if I've got them long enough to work out for me. Okay, so now we have two options. Since we could go from this corner back to our 45-degree measuring point. Would that be a little confusing for you because of this line? So let's use this one. And let me do it in blue so that you'll see it more clearly for this one. So from this corner here, we'll go back to our measuring point, our 45-degree measuring point. This should blow you away because we're outside the cone now, so we're going to get more distortion. And so I'll draw back to our 45 degrees. I'll put a little arrow that says we're going at 45, and then I'll put a 4 and 5 here so you'll see it, degrees. Where it touches right there, there's the new length of our box in perspective. That's really long. Look how short these are. That one's really long, isn't it? So let's bring up that vertical. Now let's bring over the horizontal first. And let me show you. So we'll come over, it touches there. Look how long that is now in depth. If we brought this over, that gets more reasonable. We're still outside the cone a little. No, we'd be inside the cone. It'd just be closer to us. But this would not be as long. So let's bring up now our vertical here. Okay. And let's bring our horizontal from that point over. Okay. Right over to there. Here we go. Okay. And then let's bring that vertical down right to there. See, I was a little bit off with my pencil hitting my vanishing points. Close, pretty close. Let me get this tighter. Right in through there. It's a little tighter for you. There you go. That's it. That's better. Let me tighten it up there too as well. So you gotta be tight. That would have been, I would have gotten marked off in art school for that pretty good. Be a little bit more relaxed here. All right. So there you go. Look at that 1 point. That's a perfect now 45-degree cube. But look at the distortion. That's been created because it's outside now of our cone of vision. So if we were looking at this live, it would be somewhat blurry. It's if somebody were holding a big box or a big enough box, like maybe kind of like this, right? But it's so far close and way over. I'm going to put it out of the screen. My finger's telling you where it's at, right? So it's kind of like this. I'll tilt it for our purposes so you can see the planes. But it would be so far out and peripheral and close. It'd be a pretty big box that you could see it out of the corner of your eye, but barely, and it would be blurry. And so it would be distorted. It would be looking like that, but it would be very long on this end because it's getting stretched. Why? Because it's outside of our limited cone of vision. It's a really powerful kind of thing, you know, when you think about it. Keep that in mind. So there you go. So we've got 5 cubes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could keep going on this if you want and make more. I'm gonna do a little shading on these just to have a little bit of fun with it, just to give you some, to darken these in a little bit. I'll give you a quick technique to do when you're shading. I'm just using my mechanical pencil. What I like to do is abut my edge. I'll put down my pencil and I'll hold it into the corner. Let me pull the camera in too so you can see this a little bit further. There we go. Okay. And so I'm holding my pencil down on the end here. Right? There we go. and I'll abut my ruler to the edge here, and what I can do is just lay my pencil flat, and so see how it pops against the edge? It's really easy to shade now. And what I like to do to make it even more convincing is shade towards the vanishing point, and it gives it that kind of contoury shading look. Now if I overshade, that's fine, just a little bit. I can always erase it off a little bit, which is nice. So I can put down a tone here, which is cool. And I'm doing a very simple planar shade. I'm not putting reflected light or anything on there, which I can do later on. Then I can take my eraser shield in my eraser, and if I overshade a little bit, I'll just mask that off and just kind of dab at it, take it off. I don't want to take all my lines off to make it clean it up a little bit. Then I might do the same thing with the top plane, and I might just do it a little bit lighter. So that way we get kind of a 1, 2, 3 step box look from our composite, and that's hard to do. I'd have to change the angle of my paper, and I don't want to do that because it messes up our camera. Might make you sick like you're on a roller coaster. All right, so I'll make this a little bit darker up here so you can see the planar difference, just so you can get a feel for what that looks like. You can see a little bit more solid now, so you can see the inside of our construction and also the outside a little bit. And this is just a real rudimentary shading. This is 1, 2, 3 step shading. So this is plane 1, lightest plane. This is plane 2, the medium plane, medium light, and this is plane 3, medium or medium dark. And so if you want to do that all over. Just be consistent. If you do set in 1, the front one's 1, then make 2, and 2 the top, and then 3 the right side. Just do the same thing all over, and just really be really consistent and have some fun. So maybe I'll do this one too. So this one will be 3. Right, go a little bit darker, and this one will be 2 over here. See how easy that is, and it gives you a little bit of dimensionality. So that would be 1, that would be 2, this would be 3. Just the darkest plane in through here. Okay, there we go. And then on over here. Well, I guess I have enough, doing these quick enough to get all of them. Now this is just one plane, and so you could do this at the darkest one maybe. And I'll go back. See, I'm going back to the vanishing point. And these convergence lines help guide me as an angled guide, and so I continue to turn my pencil in the angle that they're like little direction arrows, if you will, and they get me back to that point. Okay, and then lastly, this will be 2, just straight up and down. And it's harder for me to butt my edge with that ruler because I have to turn the paper again, and I don't want to mess up the camera angle. It just takes too much time, but you can lay yours out any way you want. You can use your rulers to hold your hand down. I like doing that. So my plexiglass here, might see how I can hold my hand down, but I can see through it. And I can also shade and not smear my drawing. That's important for craftsmanship. So this will be the darker plane right in through here. There we go. Okay, so there you go. We have now to review. We set up our fundamental for our center of vision, our eye line, our station point, and our cone of vision. And then we made a measuring point at 45 degrees from our station point. Now we have another one here too. I showed you that. And then we have perfect measured 45-degree cubes at different spatial distances. We found their 45-degree depth by our measuring point, right? And then lastly, we toned them in at 1, 2, 3 step shading, and then also to get the equal height, the flat height, it was just an equal space. We could have a 45-degree angle, or we used a compass, or we just measured with, you can measure with a ruler or your trusty piece of regular just paper to bring your measurements over. Okay, so on to now lesson exercise number 11, which is going to be measuring a scale. Well, now we're going to be using measuring 45-degree boxes in a scale of a box, and we're going to add some scaling with elevations to it, and I'll show you how we can bring even more accuracy and interest to your understanding of perspective, and that will be a segue to exercises 12, 13, 14, and 15, which will be accurate rooms in perspective with good scaling, so you know how to put things that are actually in true, not only in perspective, but actually have a coherence in terms of measurement. What I was doing with simple form perspective was not necessarily completely measured scale accurate, although it worked visually. And that's the thing, as long as it works visually, it's totally cool, it works. But we're also talking about it working visually and also getting good measuring and scaling to make it double accurate and also improve your drawing vision as well. Okay, I'll shut up. On to lesson 11. Exercise 11. We're going to be creating a box with some distinctive measured scaling units. We're going to create a box that we will be using a measuring point at 45 degrees, and we're going to be creating a box that's in the ground plane somewhat, that's 6 units wide, 3 units tall, and 6 units deep. And we'll be using that measuring point to help us create this spatial distinction and accuracy using perspective. So I've already started a little bit getting my setup. So I've got my center of vision, right? Then I've got my eye line, okay, which is also our horizon line. And then I'm going to put over here for our notes that the elevation, ELV, is going to be at 4 units tall. So 4 feet. Actually, I'm going to set it 4 feet. I'm just going to put 4 units. Whatever a unit is to you in equal measurements, that's going to be good. That might help with inches and centimeters and in all that good stuff as well. So I'll refresh everything I just said in a moment. Let's finish our setup. I wanted to make sure that you see the setup a few more times so we get this, correctly. Because the next step now is to start to put some scaling, like we've done in our earlier assignments, into our understanding even now further than what we've had. So the elevation of our understanding now of our viewpoint is going to be at 4 feet. So what we need now, we need a ground line, a measuring line. We need to measure along our center of vision. We need 4 units of measurement to help us through, starting at 0 up to 4 for our box, since our box is going to be 3 units tall. Okay, well, what do I mean by that? Well, I'll show you. Let's make this work. So we're going to put each unit of measurement, we're going to be doing now a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to take my ruler here, and I'm using 1/2 inches. Those of you that are using centimeters, you can adjust accordingly. So I'm going to make some marks here, equal measurements across, okay? And so we need now to go at 4 here, which is at 4. We're now at 3, 2, 1, and 0. And this is where our ground measuring line will be, since our elevation is at 4 feet. So I'm going to throw a ground line across there. And this is going to be starting at 0 here. Now we need to set in our station point. I can set in our station point closer or further back depending on what I want to do. I'm going to set my station point about right here. Seems pretty good for my notes, what I've got. Right there's our station point here. So I'll put SP, and I'll put our little secondary female or male, depending upon your gender. Little shoulders coming out through here, little buttock in the back, and then feet protruding out as we're looking straight down. Remember, we're flapped up, and we come up and over, and we align right through our center of vision, looking into the space that way. Okay. Let me go ahead and finish our scaling, and then we'll add our cone in as well. So I'm going to start here at 0, and then I'm going to make marks over. Just put a bunch of 1/2 inch marks. Okay, there, and do the same on the other side. Make sure they're right horizontal on our ground measuring line. Okay. And we can label them. That's 0. We can go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we'll put 8. We won't need that many, but we'll do it anyway. And then we'll go to the left here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we'll be good there. Okay, so we have that now. Let's put in now our cone of vision. So remember how to do that. We need our 30, 60, 90 triangle. And we'll take our 30 degree. Where's our 30 degree? This is 90, this is 60, this is 30. So we take our 30 degree triangle and we line it on our center line, center vision. Line it up there to our end of our station point. Make sure you adjust it till we get close to that. And then out to, so we can establish the look of our cone of vision here. Okay. Where it touches our eye line, horizon line. That establishes 30 degrees, and we'll bring it over to the other side. And we'll do the same thing here on the other side. So we don't necessarily have to have it, but we want it. It's nice to know, and it's nice to refresh, and it's nice to repeat this process over and over and over again until you get it so succinctly etched into your mind. It's really important. Let me get that a little tighter down here. Close enough. So that's our cone of vision through there. And let's take now our compass and let's set so we can see our cone of vision. Because we're going to put a box in there, and it may be slightly outside the cone. We won't know until I draw it a little bit further. So I'm going to line up my compass now. This is how I do it really quickly. Just kind of lay it flat until it lines up with the 2 points, and then I line them here to here and then bring them over, and now we have our cone in here. Okay. Alright, so there's our setup through here, and our fundamental 4, center of vision, eye line, our station point, and then our cone of vision, 30 and 30, which makes a total, of course, of 60. Okay, so we've got that set up, and now we've got some scaling, and now we've got an elevation also at 4 feet. We got a lot going on. Let's write down the measurements of the box that we want. Or, you know, this is a box, or it could be a little tiny room later on that you can make into a bigger room for understanding, but we're going to now use some scaling and measuring and also a reference point. We'll put that in a moment. So let's say down here we'll do it fancy with some lines. Make it look nice and neat. Slide my T-square down next week. Make sure that we can see it. Make sure I get this nice and aligned straight so you can see it. There we go. We don't want to have the camera angle off here, in here, and here. Okay, so this box will be 6 units tall, 6 units wide. Okay, it will also be 3 units tall or height, and then it's going to be, where we really need some measuring point, is 6 units deep or in depth as well. 6, 3, and 6 down through here. And so we've got some scaling going on already that's nice and helps us out. Okay, so we're 6 units wide, 3 units tall, and 6 units deep. Okay, so let's place that our box, our cube here, which later on will be a big room, into our cone here, and let's use our scaling to help locate it. So we're going to work first with 6 units wide, and we're going to make it a little bit off center just for variety's sake, and we're going to start it at 2 units in from our center of vision here, and then 4 units over through here. So that's what we're looking for, 2 here and then 4 there. So I'm going to darken that in a little bit further so you can see it here and then there. That's going to help right through there. Now we're going to make it from the ground line here. We're going to make it 3 units tall. So that's our next order of business, is 3 units tall. So we'll come up here 1, 2, and it's going to be this tall. So we can come over and let me take a lighter triangle so you can see a little better. So we're going to come up here. We know we want it 3 units tall. So it's going to be 1 unit underneath our elevation. So we can actually look down and see a little bit down underneath it. So we're at 3 units tall when I bring my T-square over through there, connect it over, and then bring it all the way over. I'll overdraw a little bit. And we'll come over to our 6 units over. This would end at 4. Since we've got 4 on this side and 2 on that side, that will make that 6. Okay, so now we've got, in nice scaling, we've got a 6 unit wide box, check, we got that, in a 3 unit tall box, 1, 2, 3 units tall. And now we've got to work on 6 units deep. So the next thing we need to know, based off the last lesson that we had, let's first of all project our depth back to the vanishing point, or VP here. Let me label that too, VP. That's our vanishing point. Always in 1 point perspective, it will be where the center of vision meets the eye line. Not necessarily the horizon line, always, but in 1 point it will, 1 point and 2 point. All right, let's project our depth back to the vanishing point there, okay, and there, back through here, and back through and over. Okay, so we've got our depth projection. All right, now what we need, you're probably thinking, yeah, we need that measuring point at 45, right? Yep, we do. That's the next thing we're going to use for our measuring point. You can do it either side you want. I'll just do it to the right side here. So 45 degrees. Get your 45, 45, 90 degree triangle, and I'm going to set that up. Align it with my center of vision. Butt it to your station point, and then we'll project a line all the way through and over to that's an arrow going through right there where it touches. That's our measuring point, MP, and again, that is at 45 degrees. All right, so now we know where we can thrust some measurement lines to, okay? So we're going to make our box 6 units deep. That's what we need, 6 units deep. And then we can distinguish, we're almost there, we can distinguish now how far back that will be. I'll show you how we do that. By driving, since we're already 6 units wide, we're going to drive this point of our box back to the measuring points. If it's 6 units wide, if I draw from 4, scaling at 4, back to the measuring point where it bisects here, that will give us our 6 unit wide box. But I'm going to get there slowly, and I'll show you why. What if we wanted a box at 1 unit deep? Well, we better do this in red so we can distinguish the sections together. And wouldn't you know it, I forgot where I put my, there it is, there's my red pencil. Got too many things going. So what if we wanted to figure out each scaling unit? What if it was just a 1 unit deep box? Well, here's what it looked like. Let's go back to the measuring point. I'll shorthand it. There's 1 unit in perspective. Here's 2 units, right, in perspective there. Here's 3 units in perspective there. Here's 4 units deep in perspective there. Here's 5 units deep in perspective right there. Notice how they're getting a little smaller. And now we're at 6 units deep right there, boom, in perspective. So right at this point, I'll make it a little stronger. That is where our 6 unit box will be located, and that's the back of that box. So now I come across, line up my T-square right there where it touches the back of the box, that plane sitting down. That is a 6 unit box deep, and now a 6 unit box wide, and a 3 unit box tall, set in at 4 units over in 2 units. 4 units over from the center of vision to the right, and 2 units over from the center of vision to the left. So it's a little bit asymmetrical. So let's finish it out. We know how to do this. We'll bring up our vertical here nice and light where it touches there. Bring up our other vertical nice and light where it touches there. And then we're going to bring over our horizontal here and here. There we go. We'll line up there. Pretty close. And that's what we want, to get it pretty close and accurate there. And then there we go. We've got a nice 6, 6, and 3 box going. So let me darken it in with our line work. And we're almost done with exercise 11. Should we shade it a little bit? We can do that too as well. Darken the outside of it in so we can see the inside and the outside of our box all at once. This is smart. This is the way I was trained to do boxes all 6 sides, because you get a feeling for what's going on with space and forms, not only inside but certainly outside and inside. So you can see and feel what the back of boxes look like too, and you're going to need it in perspective to learn more about perspective anyway. So we'll come across here, and it gives you structure, it gives you dimension, it gives you practice visualizing that which you can sketch in your own head later on. So we'll tone in a little bit of the top here, a little bit darker, and then we'll go here on the side, maybe just a little bit lighter with some light, maybe skipping across it a little bit. And I just kind of abut my edge. Use my mechanical pencil. We want to make it kind of transparent, maybe a little bit darker in the edge here, and let it fade off a little bit, and then I can pick it up over here a little bit, make it a little bit darker coming through, and I'll catch this edge. There we go. Make it feel like it's got a little light skipping across it through there. And there we go. So we have now a nice rectangular cube with 6 units wide, 3 units tall, 6 units deep in perspective using a measuring point. And of course we have our setup too as well. All right, that was exercise 11. Now we're going to go on to exercise 12, and we're going to create a room at 12 units by 12 units by 12 units. This will be feet, 12 by 12 by 12 with an elevation of 7 feet. That's what's coming up now in exercise 12. Okay, let's go on to that.